G'day, it's Paul McWilliam, and this is Adelaide Real, a guide to getting you fit together. And today we're joined by Jon Mitchell. Now, Jon's from STFU Fitness Systems, and Jon's got a really good story to tell because, a lot of the podcast guests we've had on so far are coming from a place of being overweight and trying to regain their fitness that way. But Jon's come from another angle where he had issues with drug and alcohol, and he's got himself sober, got stuck right into the fitness. He's a bit of a Spartan race legend and does very well in those races. And I've seen a lot of his Instagram stuff, and he's making me feel a bit weak and, lazy from some of the stuff that he does. But welcome, Jon. Thanks so much for making the time, mate, to join us on the podcast.
You're very welcome, and I want to preface the accolades there. I race as often as possible, and I train specifically to race, but I would not say that I'm at the top, anywhere near a top level racer. There's a lot of competition.
You were top 50 once, though, weren't you? In top 50.
Yeah, well, in my age group, I've come in top 5, top 20 elite at a couple races, but I mean, I guess it's relative. I kind of, put a lot of pressure on myself to perform in, higher level races, You know what I mean? So I enjoy it, and it's something that I do often, and it's kind of a direction for my training. But I'm not a pro, and I'm not sponsored. I'm not any of that. I just want to make that clear enough.
No, fair enough. No, look, we like a bit of someone who's a little bit humble. But do you think that's something that given your background, I'll get you to touch on that in a minute, but is that something where you've replaced, your drug and alcohol with something else? Is that how that, you look at that?
You absolutely nailed it on the head. I don't think there's any other way to look at addiction other than something that occupies a major part of your life. And I think that coincides. I think that's exactly the same with eating, overeating, or any kind of anxiety-related stress. I mean, that thinking and that mentality occupies so much of your day. And of your time that as soon as you remove that sort of stimulus, you're left with this giant open void. And if you don't react and put something in its place, you're as an addict. I have sort of an obsessive mentality about things. So if I didn't replace that void or something in that void, then who knows where it could have gone? I have no idea. It's scary to think about that, but.
Very easy to fall back, isn't it? If you haven't got something to replace it with.
There are a ton of variables at play, but personally, from an individual standpoint, from your own consciousness, yes, you have to actively work to fill that void with things that are going to be beneficial to your life. Yeah. And a lot of people fall victim to. In my experience with people that I've gone through rehab with, they'll fill it with relationships that often lead to toxicity, right? Relationships or eating or just drugs altogether all over again. Or they'll blame drugs and go to alcohol. They'll blame alcohol and go to drugs. It's it's a very slippery slope. And if you don't just sort of fill it with something that's actually going to be productive to your life, you're kind of you might end up back there again pretty quickly.
Yeah. So can you just touch on briefly, just go as far as you want to, but touch on briefly sort of where you came from to now in terms of what got you here?
Yeah, it's difficult to tell when drinking took place, but my DOC, or drug of choice as they call it in the system, was primarily alcohol. Then as a result of alcohol, whatever drug would show up. And I'm sure anyone listening can relate to that sort of scenario. Yeah. And it just kind of overtook my life. But the beginnings, that's difficult. I mean, I had my first vodka in Australia. I lived in Sydney, just outside of Sydney, for 3 years when I was growing up. Yep. It's called Kimball. And that was it. And there was never I was never like, oh man, I need more. I need to do this all day, every day. Yeah. So you realize that it's so socially acceptable to drink to a point of being drunk that you don't pay any attention to it. You just assume it's normal. Everybody's doing it. Yeah, I mean, it's a great story, right? Everybody has a laugh, and then you move on. You don't think twice about it until further on down the line, like myself, I just ended up binge drinking alone in a basement apartment, not talking to anybody, not even family, blocking calls, like just totally antisocial, listening to music, imagining that I'm doing all these things that I'm not doing, lying to friends and family about like how great life is. And it's just, that's the funny thing. They all know. They all knew what I was doing, that I was just sitting there doing nothing for myself. Yeah. But yeah, I guess over time it got to a point where my mom actually flew out to, I was in Toronto at the time, and she flew out, showed up at the place I was staying at, and she said, we're going away the next day, or tomorrow we're going somewhere. We just went up north, and she dropped me off at a rehab facility, and I was there first time for 30 days. And I blamed cocaine, actually, a drug. Really, really common to blame everything but the actual problem. Yeah. Anything that allows you to sort of divert attention away from yourself, just kind of blame the blame game. So I did that, got out in 30 days, and then I had a year to kind of blame cocaine and then really indulge in alcohol.
Yeah, so you kicked your cocaine habit, but you thought, I'll keep alcohol. He's my mate.
Well, I mean, the cocaine wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for the drinking in the first place. So it was just a very skillful mental tactic of mine to kind of remove the actual blame from the thing that was doing it. So and that's really common in addiction. People will do whatever they can to take the blame or just kind of bypass blame or put it on something else entirely. It's just not on them until finally, anyway, like a year later, and it just got really bad. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer at the time. And, those things kind of have a sobering, so to speak, pun intended, way of impacting your life. So I just remember asking her on the phone, is rehab where you want me to go? And she said, yep. And that was it. And then I went in for 90 days, and then, the rest of the story sort of unfolds after that. But long story short, lots of injuries, jail time, arrests, bad relationships, just acting like a complete lunatic. So I never hurt anybody physically. I got in a couple fights with guys at bars, but they're also drunk. It's just kind of a stupid thing you do. Yeah. But I got really lucky in that I had a family in place and a system in place where people cared enough to say, right, that's enough. You're out of there. And a lot of people don't have that opportunity. So I realized it and sort of took advantage of it.
And there's plenty of opportunities to find, they talk about finding your tribe. There's plenty of opportunities to find the tribe that are a negative aspect of your life too, aren't there? There's plenty of people who want to go out and have a drink with you or party with you.
I was so funny about that. So, I mean, I still have like several different groups of friends. You just have like the one friend you met when you used to live at this building. Then you have friends from high school, then from college, and then, all these groups of friends, and they're all sort of all over Toronto where I'm from. Yep. And I would have brunch with one group and have a couple drinks there. I'd have like late afternoon drinks with another group. And then late at night, I'd go out with the group that I knew was going to be like hardcore. And then, every time you meet up with the group, you're like, yeah, I had a nice day. I wasn't really doing too much. It's nice to finally be out. When in reality, it's like I'm three bottles of wine deep, a little bit of vodka, whatever. Just like, I mean, so there's definitely a tribe factor. And I was just able to segment all these things in my mind to make it less of an ordeal for myself. Yeah. And it was just lying to myself, really, and just saying, well, I'm going out with this new group, therefore it's a new me, and I'm not actually that hammered.
Yeah. And look at the thing with fitness too, someone like myself who's come from being overweight and not exercising and overeating, the same thing applies. You lie to yourself. You think, it's okay for me to eat this now because the next meal I'm going to be good, or tomorrow I'm going to be good, and tomorrow I'm going to exercise. But it just never happens.
It'll get better eventually, right?
Something magically is going to happen, and we'll be good.
Yeah, I was the same way. I mean, I had a incredibly lucid moment once that I still remember. I was leaving the office of basically a family member hired me on as, handling the marketing arm, and I would, I still regret it to this day. I'd head out at lunch and have a bunch of drinks and come back. It's just terrible. I admitted it to him the first time, like a couple years ago. It was rough, but that's part of it. Anyway, I had this lucid thought where I left, and I was like, well, what am I going to do now? And the only thing that came to mind, the only actionable item that came to mind was go to the liquor store and get vodka. That was it. That was the only thing that came to mind. And I imagine with food and that sort of thing. That it's the same notion. You just don't know anything else to do but, go and eat something. I didn't know anything else to do but go and have a drink. So
go and have a drink. Yeah. So had sport been part of your life prior to this, or fitness been part of your life leading up to, when you got yourself in trouble?
Sure. Yeah. Training with purpose was never really a part of my life, but hockey was a major part of my life as a Canadian growing up in Ontario. When I was like 5 or 6 or something, I had skates on. My dad was a coach.
Right.
And, it was unbelievable. I had some of my best memories from those days. And I played baseball in the summertime, so I was always incredibly active. And credit to my mom, who probably saw a tendency to just be like way out there all the time, like go. So she's like, he's going to be in sports, and I did really well in them.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Australia when I was about 12, and I played hockey out there, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And when we came back to Canada around 17 years old, sports just kind of dwindled. The party scene sort of started creeping in, and then didn't revisit it until later on in my 20s.
Yeah, it seems it's a pretty common sort of age, that 17, 18, 19, where girls and booze and cars and all that sort of stuff come into the mix. And it's where Australian sporting clubs really struggle to hold on to their kids coming through, because they just lose them to all these other temptations. So, So you and certainly with your through your not being sober, I'm guessing you weren't overeating, and there wasn't a lot of focus on, food. It was just, where can I get my next drink? And
I didn't even like eating. I thought it was a distraction from drinking. I was like, I have to? I would just add some bread, because I was like, well, there's got to be something, or I'm just going to end up. It was just disgusting. Like I'd be like, I need to have some bread, otherwise I'm just going to throw wine up later, and that's not fun because that burns, right? And that's like the logic that would go through my head. It's like, eat a couple of slices of bread, and that was it for me.
And that was it. And, so you didn't come into your sobriety overweight, but you certainly weren't fit. You weren't healthy. I
was underweight. Yeah, I was. Yeah. I'm about 205 pounds now, and I was somewhere around 165.
Wow.
When I checked into rehab, so just like rake thin, big old gut hanging out, and just totally exhausted. And I asked the doctor, I was like, how close was I to like the end game here? And he's like, you're a matter of months away. Wow. And for a 29-year-old man to hear you were months away from like ultimately the end, that's pretty terrifying. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So that helped me a lot. But I'm sure you're leading to how fitness came about.
Yeah. So what happened there? Was there someone a mentor, or is it just something you've stumbled into? How did that come about?
Again, I have to credit my mom to her. I have to credit this to her. I lost my mom to cancer about 1.5 years ago. So I always give her the credit where credit is due. And the same goes to my dad and my sister and my friends. But I truly believe that if I hadn't listened to her that one time, it just would have been, a few months further down that line. So if I had to go down that road, no doubt I would have.
Oh, good on you.
When I got out of rehab, I came to Florida, and I believe that if you really want to change habits, which is a major thing with fitness, it's a major thing with eating. It's a change of diet. It's not a change of behavior, it's a change of habit. It's not a change of behavior. It's not a change of how many smoothies you drink, or how many like lean whatever you eat, or how much you don't eat, how many carbs you negate on yourself. But it's really about the habits that you form.
Yeah. So
my mom was saying, you're an athlete. You always have been. Your body's natural state is to be pushed, ever so gently through the fitness mechanisms, whatever they might be, weights or running or whatever.
Yep.
So it started very, very simply. It was like I just went on the internet and looked up like a 3-day-a-week lifting plan.
Yep.
And it would just be like some barbell curls, dumbbell curls over here, and then go to do some like bench press over there, and then like leg kicks here, burpees there. Super simple, but I started feeling really, really like I started coming back to life a little bit, and I quit smoking. I smoked for like, I don't know, 13 years or something.
Yeah. So you just started to wake up your body a bit, just started moving.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's one of the keys. That's what I tell clients all the time too, when they're just about to get themselves ready to face fitness for what it is, because the truth of the matter is it's going to shock your body. It's really going to, if you're going to do it correctly, it's going to shock your body. I'm not talking about going to a gym with your book or your OK magazine or People magazine or whatever and kicking back and spinning your legs for a little while. I mean, like, with purpose, that, if you're starting, probably 20 minutes to 30 minutes is sufficient. But I mean, you're in there to get the job done, and that's kind of the end of it. And that's got to be like the sole purpose of it. And it took me a while to, get to that point. But at first, my real struggle was sticking to a plan. Like what plan was going to be best for me.
Well, it's very confusing, isn't it? If you're coming to it with not a lot of experience, there's so many options out there that is, do this is the greatest, no, do this, CrossFit or whatever.
Yeah. So the fitness industry is just terrible like that. It's horrible. And the people that have the budgets to end up on the top end of Google SEO searches are the ones that aren't propagating fitness routines based on science. They're doing it based on marketing and sales.
Yeah.
So, individuals people are just confused, rightfully so. They're incredibly confused about what is going on. And like, I feel terrible for people who fight obesity, because they've fallen prey to marketing tactics of, the giant food industry. And then they try and like get some help from another industry, and they're also
just as
taking
bad
advantage of their wallet and their like misery and their desire to better their life. And I found that the best way to sort of help them along is to take it back to like the bare basics of happiness,
Yeah.
If you have to think about fitness as like a means to be happy, and it absolutely cannot be based on a means to look a certain way, because if you're trying to look a certain way, then you're just going to start paying attention to the wrong things. Yeah. Like Instagram, it's good and it's bad. I mean, we met through Instagram, and that's it's good in that way, but women particularly, it's bad for men too, but women particularly through Instagram and influencers, just doing like donkey kicks and doing this butt thing and like abs and all these and women are just exposed to this like demand from society to look a certain way. So dieting becomes this major priority, whereas like actual health and fitness and longevity become way less value. They're way down the list. So I mean, facing the fitness industry is one of the most difficult things a person can do, and understanding what works for you takes time. Unfortunately, that takes a lot of time, and not everybody can afford a personal trainer or the means to talk about it. But there are good ways to go about it, and looking up credentialed people. I'm not a doctor or anything, but I do look up to people, and I'll quote doctors all the time on what they think and how routines should be built. But for myself, finding a way was performance. My fitness journey began with just sort of feeling good, but then I started getting competitive with myself, and I'm like, how far can I take this? Where am I going to put it? Like, what's the goal? And Spartan race, I saw this a racer named Hunter McIntyre, who's just kind of a beast in the racing world. And I just thought that was the kind of lifestyle. He went through a bit of addiction as well and had to do some rehab too, so I'd sort of connected on that level. And then I saw racing, and I was like, holy shit, this is something that could really take some time and effort. And it was perfect because it's the perfect thing to obsess over. And I'm like, boom, there we go. I've got a thing. I can obsess over it for days. There's running, there's like body weight exercises. There's all kinds of like, how are you going to balance your strength with your grip, with your being light, being fast, being quick, all these crazy things. So it's perfect for me.
And it's pretty good timing for you too, really, because there's been a real explosion in the Tough Mudder, the Spartan races. There's been a real explosion in that segment, of sport. So pretty good timing for you, really, coming into that and getting something you can transition into that takes your mind off all the other crap that was going on. you know?
Yeah. I mean, life is life, and no matter which way you cut it, or no matter how privileged you are, life is still going to have a relative way of kicking your butt. You know, I mean, it's going to be loss or tragedy or like health issues or whatever. So there's always got to be a point. And this gave me a point. You know, it gave me something to sort of like lean on and aim for. I think everybody needs that. It doesn't have to be sport or working out. It just so happens that sport and working out is also going to increase your lifespan. So,
and did you find it was handy then to have these little goals? So it was maybe entering your first race, and then after you did your first race, okay, I want to be a little bit better in my second race, or a lot better in my second race. Did you find that helped you?
100%. I mean, there's no point in training. There's no point in getting a gym membership or a personal trainer or anything unless you have some kind of goal, a fitness related goal. It cannot be a look. It can't be like, I want my butt to get bigger or I want to have abs. Like none of that is going to help you at all. It's going to either starve you, tire you out, take away all your motivation, or straight up make you depressed because you're never going to be this like Photoshop person on Instagram. You're just not going to be that. So if they
don't use Photoshop on Instagram, do they?
Yeah, no, they're just no filter, right? Hashtag no filter, whatever. Right. Sad. But, you know, if you can put a goal and base it on performance, then there's no way to cheat that. Your performance is your performance, and it's relative for anybody. I mean, for some of my clients, I'll say, all right, we want to get to a body weight back squat. You know, that'll be our thing.
Yeah.
But for others, it's like I have other athletes who are like, I'm running like they're experienced ultra distance OCR runners, and they're like, my grip sucks, or this sucks, my legs, whatever. So they'll have different goals, but there's always a way to redirect goals and manipulate them and sort of change them. So it's never ending. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
But for people just starting out, don't bother unless you can really have a discussion with yourself.
Yeah.
And say,
what is OCR? Sorry, just for an ignorant Aussie like me, what's OCR?
Obstacle course racing.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that encompasses Spartan and Tough Mudder and OCR, WC, the World Championships, which are actually in New South Wales this year, I think.
Right. Okay. Well, I interviewed a fellow by the name of Declan McGovern a bit earlier. He was on one of the earlier podcasts, and he was this year's winner of the bodybuilding.com transformation challenge for the whole world. But he's got into the Spartan racing too, because again, he did the 12-week challenge. You know, there was a goal to lose as much as you can, look as good as you can. But he also found that effort was not sustainable, because he won it, he reached that goal, and then he needed to have something else after that, because he said he put on weight. He put on weight after the 12 weeks. He looked great in the photos, but the next couple of weeks he didn't look like that anymore. So what you're saying is that, so what you're saying is that that might be good in the short term, that I need to drop a few pounds or, you know, whatever, change a dress size or whatever, but it's not really a sustainable model, is it?
Well, no, because, I mean, your mind's going to take that information and you're going to subconsciously start making decisions based on simply losing weight. You know what I mean? And that's going to stop you from eating that cookie or that ice cream or that whatever. But you're also creating this like rebellion inside yourself where it's like, eventually I'm going to get to that ice cream.
Yeah. I'm going to get it. Yeah.
I'm talking about myself here specifically.
Yeah.
People can probably relate, but you know, you're kind of taking things away from yourself, and it's not gonna help you in the long run, because eventually you're gonna dabble, and then that dabble will turn into a bit of a current, and that current will turn into a full-blown flood or waterfall, you know? So the best way I've found and I've seen in other athletes and I've read from other coaches is to, you know, have goals that are performance-based, because, you know, I can run a 5K any time of the year, and if that time's not decreasing, then my performance isn't getting any better. And, you know, that what comes with performance are all the physical attributes that people enjoy. Yeah. And when you get to a point where your performance is steadily increasing, you're not going to care about what you look like anyway, because you're going to be so proud of the fact that you're accomplishing these goals.
Yeah.
And it just feels, it feels way better than being able to take that picture of the abs, which I've done too. I'm totally guilty of it as well. But I've never gotten the same bang for my buck as I did when I, you know, beat my 5K time or I did a 24-hour endurance race in Iceland, finishing that thing was like completely epic. But
Absolutely.
and there's no glorious pictures of any of that. It's just like a part of who I am and how I kind of see my potential as a person, rather than like a series of before and after pictures. But back to the guy who was looking at, or who won that bodybuilding title. It's not sustainable because it's based on a short-term goal, and it's based on a goal that's just only tangible through like a visible scope, and we can see results really, really quickly. And I could starve myself for a week and drop 10 pounds, no problem. And then we'll do like a whole bunch of crazy, pictures and make it seem like it's all good, but it's not. Whereas if you went the other way and did performance-based, you have to eat properly, you have to train effectively, you have to rest properly, you have to drink water accordingly, and you have to manage all these things that fall directly in line with your body telling you exactly what it needs all the time. Are you thirsty? Have a drink. Are you hungry? Eat something. It's very simple.
And you're ready to. And if you're following that plan, you're ready to go at any time, really, aren't you? You're ready to go. If you needed to go for a run for whatever reason, your car broke down, or you're ready to go. Whereas that person that's training for the photo, I need to get that 6-pack photo in 10 weeks, or the 7-week challenge. That might be the only week of their life they're ready.
And they're probably malnourished at that point. Your body's not
dehydrated.
It's just physically not meant to like shed more than 1 or 2 pounds every couple of weeks. Maybe more for some. I mean, it's such a broad, you can't really paint the entire population the same way, but
depends on where you're starting, I guess.
I mean, generally speaking, I would be really worried if I or any of my clients dropped like between 5 or 10 pounds in a month and they started at a relatively healthy weight. But if you started on the higher scale, then you're going to be dealing with a lot of water weight, you're going to be dealing with like a lot of, and you can drop pounds pretty quickly early on.
But you obviously take the focus away from the scales, though, don't you? You're talking to people.
100%.
I came in to see you, John, mate. Just look at me. I need to lose weight. What are you doing? What are you doing when you're sort of finding out why they want to lose weight, or if there's some sort of goal in place? Well,
I want to understand their lifestyle. I'll take one of my clients. The first things that I pay attention to is I kind of just want to hear their story and where they stand, and how they see themselves is also very indicative of the direction that they're going to want to take. So if I have a client who says, man, and this happens so often, it's like my butt is too big, or my beer gut. And it's always these things that are just hyper glorified all over magazines and on TV. And it's like, I'm just sick of it, like beyond sick of it. But I mean, it's just the reality. And I just kind of asked them, like, walk me through a day to day. And anyone that I start working with, I'm like, let's do like, keep a log for the next week of your eating habits and pretend that I'm not there. And if you don't think you can do that, then just tell me what you ate for the last week right now on the spot. And more often than not, they're pretty honest about it, because, I have to tell them that as a, not only a trainer, but a coach, it's like, let's be honest and let's open the dialogue about what it means for you to be healthy. Let's not talk about how it means for like some of your idols to be healthy. How can you be healthy?
Cut through the marketing.
It boils down to just habits. Everybody has weird habits. I like to eat ice cream late at night, and I have to kind of figure out ways to burn that off and work it into my life. And you probably shouldn't, but you live once, and that's what I like to do, And it's about balance. So I'll never be like, take everything away. You're drinking green smoothies for the rest of the month, and we're going to I want to take before and after pictures for my business, so I'm going to starve you. Post them on my blog. No, that's what happens way more often than not. But usually it's very, very small tweaks with somebody, and then the most important part of the process is changing perception of what it means to be healthy. And often it's really easy. It's like, do you have kids? Do you have family around? Like, what do you value in your life? And almost always it comes down to being able to participate in things with kids, or being able to like hold family events or travel or do all these things. And you simply can't do that if you're weighed down, with diabetes, like serious cases of diabetes or any other ailments associated with poor health. And that sort of helps them sort of like click. I'm not a doctor. I can't say because of what you're eating now, you can look forward to this down the line. All I know is that subtle changes at first are going to be sustainable long-term, and then building and changing perception of what it means to be healthy is probably like the top thing you can do as somebody looking to sort of change your health.
Yeah. And then developing some really good habits around that.
Yeah, exactly. And habits can range from anything. I mean, I myself try and incorporate 3 green smoothies a day into my routine. And that just keeps me, I don't have to like bite into supplements at all. I don't have to like, I don't manage my macros or anything, although a lot of people do, and they get a lot of benefit out of it. But me personally, again, back to being an individual, that's just not my style. I like to wing it, but I like to have like certain things like touchstones throughout my day that, as long as I do that, I'll be good. I've seen the results, and I've been training consistently for maybe like 3 years now. So anytime I do change something, I can feel it. I've tried being vegan. I've tried paleo. I've tried the zone diet. I've tried, I don't know, what else have I tried? Oh, fasting. I've tried all of it. And I always end up at the same weight because I'm still training, and the training is what's telling my body to be a certain way, not what I'm eating. What I'm eating has an impact on the quality of the training. So it's kind of, as long as I'm getting the right foods in me, then my training is going to be adequate, and I can continue, hitting my own personal performance goals.
Helps with your recovery and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. The greens in the smoothie, that's all about recovery. Yeah. That's all about giving your body a chance to repair. And through my experience, it's been, spinach or kale, leafy, dark leafy greens has always been like a key to recovery for me. Yeah. And then, your proteins, but you've probably heard it. Proteins are a little bit overrated at this point. And as soon as you know that there's a marketing engine behind something, then you have to be skeptical. Yeah. And something like protein is one of those things with a massive marketing engine behind it. So I'm totally skeptical of like every single protein, mass, bulking, whatever the hell that they call it. Yeah. Nowadays, it's have a lean piece of turkey a couple times. Yeah. If you're eating
a well-balanced diet, theoretically you should be getting all that stuff anyway. You shouldn't. Yeah, and
the really funny thing, the really funny thing about it is that everybody knows what's healthy and what's not healthy. Yeah. Every single person knows, but that's not how we make our decisions on food. That's not. We make decisions based on taste and appearance and like even socioeconomic reasons, like what does it make us look like in society if we go to this like nice restaurant, or if we're eating poor quality, whatever. But at the end of the day, we all know what's healthy and what's not, which again is why the habit is where the issue is and not exactly the menu,
And it's finding, and like you said as well, it's finding stuff that works for you as well, because there's lots of different options out there. I was just eating too much, bacon, red meat, all this sort of stuff. So I've decided to go plant-based, and it's worked really well for me. I've lost weight. I feel good. But for someone else, paleo or whatever might be the ticket for them. So there's really not one, I guess, that fits everyone. You've got to be comfortable doing it, and you've got to make sure that you feel good. And that's like you were saying with your exercise. It's trial and error. You got to find the exercise that works for you. Me, I've got bad knees. So if I was to try and go out and just start running, it's not going to be sustainable. I just couldn't do it. I can barely walk, but getting on the bike, on the treadmill, doing weights, I really think weights for me is really good, that I build muscle fairly quickly, and then that helps burn the fat. But for someone else, it might be just they swim and they get magnificent results. You've really got to find that sweet spot, don't you?
Yeah, we're totally unique. I mean, would you, as a young person, would you go and date anybody, or would you be selective about, who you dated? Or that's
probably a bad question for me.
You get what I mean, though. It's the thing is that we're so distracted by people who are marketing programs as being the answer to everything that now we try and apply that to everything else. So now we're like, there's a diet that's going to do everything for me, and it totally like forgets to include the very specific biological factors that make you who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, you may be able to, process carbs a lot faster than somebody else. Like I know for a fact that I'm able to process sugars metabolically very quickly. So, I mean, I can get away with the ice cream every now and then.
Yeah.
But other people, that's not going to be the same thing. So they've got to restructure that. They've got to rebuild it and try to figure out a different way to get away with those things. Yeah. And I totally encourage figuring out a way to get away with the things that you love to do to an extent. At some point you have to bite the bullet and say, that's not a good idea. Yeah. But as long as you're not looking at somebody's book, here are the things that I look at. If I hear about a diet, first I look up the book, then I look up the marketing program, the Instagram things and the before and after, and then it always falls into the same damn format.
Yeah.
Very little science to back it up, and if there is, it's obscure science that they've glorified. And that applies to like paleo, zone. I mean, if there's a book about it, it's probably just because they're trying to get that book to sell, and it's strange because the books kind of all have this tone that they're this final answer to something, but all of these things have been repeated through history. I mean, it's just repackaged, rebranded. Yeah. And if you're out to make a bit of money, then it's great. But if you're just the average consumer desperate to lose a little bit of weight, those things are going to look like they're a great answer. And all you have to do is sit down and read.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, let's do it. And then you're just setting yourself up for like a letdown because you're like, well, it didn't work.
Yeah.
And the real truth of the matter is it didn't work for you. It did nothing for you because it's not working for you. It did its job when you bought the book. Yeah. That's it. That's the entire point.
That's the end of the relationship as far as they're concerned.
And it does not care what you do afterwards,
Yeah, absolutely.
They would love if you shouted out the book on social media or something. I mean, it's just, it's strange. Yeah. And once for me, I'm lucky enough to have clients that are really open about their journey, and I can ask them serious questions about how it makes them feel when they look at themselves in the mirror, like with clothes or not, whatever they want to do. I always say, take a before picture. That's yours. It's private. You don't need to show anybody that. In fact, I encourage you not to show anybody. That's yours. Fitness is your journey. Keep it yours. If you want to share it, sure. Take that picture, and use it as a benchmark, not to get mad at yourself or upset with yourself for looking a certain way, but to motivate you to be the change that person needs. Like you essentially become the hero that person needs.
Yeah.
And you put it on yourself, but you shed a positive light on yourself instead of being so negative. And you can probably relate to that. I can relate to that with,
absolutely,
coping mechanisms and drinking. And you're just hard on yourself. So if you can take yourself and look at somebody, make yourself somebody who needs a bit of help with things, and reposition yourself in your mind as somebody that needs some help.
Yeah.
And effectively just be kind to yourself through your journey and try and educate yourself. And like you said, do the research on things that feel good and yield the results that you're looking for. But I mean, if the results are super quick, then it's probably not sustainable, and it's just, it's a struggle for a lot of folks.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with, if you start in a particular direction, there's nothing wrong with changing 2 months down the track. Doesn't mean you're a failure. You've just adapted it to work for you. The worst thing you can do is get into, and it's like a broken record on this podcast, the worst thing you can get into is the yo-yo effect, where you lose some weight, you gain it back, plus you add another 4 or 5 pounds on top, or 10 pounds on top, and then you're even feeling worse about yourself, And
then you feel worse, and then you have an even worse binge. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that's the same in the drug and alcohol world too, isn't it? People go to rehab, but I'm sure a lot of them, as soon the day they get out, they're just back on it.
Yeah, it's like anything, and fitness is no exception. It's like, if you want to commit to something, you have to agree to yourself. First, you have to admit to the mistakes that you were doing before that got you into that situation. So with food, you have to admit the fact that you've been overeating and you've been doing it with whatever coping mechanisms or what the gamut of issues that would lead to overeating. You just have to admit it. And if you can admit it, then you create a target. Like for me, it took me a pretty long time to admit alcoholism. I was too proud. Yes. I was like, how am I going to have a beer with my dad? And then eventually I'm like, my dad doesn't care about what I'm drinking when we're hanging out.
Yeah.
He just cares about hanging out.
Yeah.
Same with my sister, my brother-in-law, and my friends. Nobody cares about what you're drinking.
Yeah, exactly.
You just
they just want you to be alive and happy and functioning.
Yeah. And not in your basement drinking alone, listening to music. And
Yeah.
as long as you can admit it, you can finally accept the fact that that's been something you've been doing wrong, and you can place it on the shelf in your mind and look at it and be like, that's what I was.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking to be something different.
Yeah.
But you can't do anything until you fully accept the flaws that were taking place in the first place.
In the first place, yeah.
A lot of people are really reluctant to do it, mostly because of pride.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to admit that. They always a lot of people want to blame the diets, and to a point, like I was saying, you can blame the diet. You can blame the books and the Dr. Oz's and all the whatever.
Yeah.
But it all comes down to you, really.
It's personal responsibility. You got to be self-aware enough, and it doesn't come easy, but you got to be self-aware enough to look in the mirror and say, no one else has caused this,
Yeah.
Just because my mum's overweight or my dad or whatever, they haven't caused this. I've still got some control over this, but I've got to do something about it. It's no good just wishing that it'll happen. You've got to take some steps.
Yeah, blaming things is a really dangerous route, because that can go on for a lifetime.
Oh, mate, tell me about it.
Yeah, we all know people who can blame this, that, and the other thing for whatever predicament they find themselves in. And I feel really bad, and I try not to remind people that it's probably your fault, because that would just make me seem like a bit of a dick. But try and encourage the thought process, like, you can't be afraid. If you ever speak to somebody who's really open about an issue that they've had to take on that has like a negative stigma associated with it, like drinking, I'll speak to somebody who has a drug problem or a drinking problem, and when they're active, and when they admit it, and they're like, I can't control it.
Yeah,
it is like, you see heroes on TV wielding a sword and like a whatever, but real heroes are the people that can look at themselves and realize that they are the problem that they're creating, and they're ultimately the only ones that can face it. And I personally believe that the hardest thing a human can do in their life is take themselves on, whether that's in competition or recovery or changing a habit. But when you have to operate between your own ears against an adversary who's you, it's like, that's a tough thing to do. And there's all kinds of that.
Sorry, it's an amazing feeling though when you do make that decision to change and you actually start following through on it. And you would have seen it. I felt it myself. I've lost 20 odd kilos. I've still got a long way to go, but there's been progress. And you with your clients, just from even being able to not do a push-up to doing a push-up is a massive milestone.
Yeah.
And it changes the way you think. It changes the way what's possible.
It does. And we essentially build a governor in our minds because of our either sadness or depression or whatever was causing our issue. It governs our ability to see ourselves as better than what we are, Yeah. It stops us from trying. It stops us from signing up for that race or setting like a big goal. I really believe in, if someone says I can't run 100 meters, I'd be like, all right, let's sign up for a 5K. We'll make it a year down the line or something, but we're signing up for a 5K.
We're going to do this.
Because it opens up the dialogue internally and with myself as a coach, that they're better than they think they are,
Yeah.
And the most powerful thing I think humans can do for another human, apart from just being kind, is helping them understand themselves, without saying, look what I did, you can do it too. It's more like asking the questions and listening and creating a dialogue that helps them see, wait a minute, I'm capable of a whole lot more than I really thought. And I'm not sure why I thought I wasn't capable of doing anything.
Yeah. It's like David Goggins, he talks about the 40%. Most people are only functioning at about 40% of their capacity. They've just got to get to that next stage. And it's a bit of a snowball.
I think that's a great theory. I have no idea what the numbers actually equate to, but I can tell you that I couldn't run a mile, and now I'll run a lot more than that, and I'll do it. I'll do it having fun with a smile on my face,
Yeah, and you're climbing over obstacles in the middle of it as well. You're not just flat tracking it.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like the crazier it is, the better, and the harder it's going to be. A recent race in West Virginia was one of the hardest things I've ever done, and I failed miserably. I cramped out in the middle of it. And like every single part of me at the end of it was like, man, you should have done so much better. And then I was like, hold on a second, like just back up a moment. Where were you 4 years ago, first of all?
Yeah.
What part of the journey are you in now? What did you just accomplish? And this is that kind of self-dialogue that I try and encourage.
Yeah.
And it's like, take what just happened, redirect your sights, aim for the performance gains that you're going to need to do better next year in a race, sort of like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But take it for what it is. You just went out there and did something that you thought you were completely incapable of doing less than 4 years ago. And that right there is a huge, huge, huge victory, which is like another massive part of the equation. You have to allow yourself to have the victories, you know? I don't know if that's going to be like a meal that you didn't eat or a meal that you did eat, or the, you know, the types, but everything could be a small victory, and noting it.
Absolutely. And it's just a way of thinking about it too, because, you know, that's the danger of setting yourself a goal, a weight-based goal. And if you don't get to that goal, you focus on the 2 kilos or the 5 pounds that you haven't you know, achieved, and you forget about the 55 that you have. Now you probably hear my dog in the background. My wife's just left.
I do.
Louis. So he's just feeling a bit abandoned at the moment. So we'll try and work through that. But also, when someone comes to see you talking about why they want to do it and what's important to them, what then would you get them doing? You know, I guess it depends on what level they're at. But, you know, I read on your website, you know, you and certainly with the Spartan races, a lot of body weight stuff, all this, you know, that's very important. And I'm a big fan of that. I think that's a great way to go. So what are you sort of putting in place as a general rule for these people?
It's about discovering limits. You know, it's not about trying to overcome limitations right off the bat. It's like, I just want to do very, very safe movements, compound movements that recruit a lot of muscle groups, and they're relatively stable even if form is lacking. Because I can sort of trust that their body's going to handle the process, rather than saying, all right, let's go do some power cleans right now. So at first it's going to be a series of workouts. The format is like, let's warm up, first of all, jumping jacks, running, whatever. It really depends on the athlete. But a sufficient warm up. And then for somebody that just gets started, it's really about discovering what their limitations are. One client had serious limitations with push-ups. So we just scaled them back. And then every week we work on push-ups, and we go further and further. And she also couldn't do 20 air squats or something. Actually it was. She couldn't do 20 air squats in a row, something like that. And then, you know, just the other day she did 100 in her WOD. Her workout of the day was 100 air squats. And man, I don't know if I could do that. And I'm like, you can do that. Because I had her doing back squats as well. And a lot of her workouts incorporated single leg isolation movements. So, I mean, she was strong enough, 100%. So I guess the format essentially becomes, you know, what are your goals? Your goals kind of matter a little bit further on down the line, because first we need the foundation to build adequate strength, right? And then, once I see the adequate strength sort of building, I can start proving the concept to them and start putting them through workouts that they don't really believe they can do, but they end up just nailing out of the park, and they're walking around fine the next day.
And it doesn't have to be complicated, does it, to start with? It's just getting them moving, getting some basic function happening in their body.
It's just like nutrition. If it sounds complicated, there's probably some marketing thing behind it that's just trying to sell a program. Because fitness is not complicated. You're born with the body. I mean, if you move your arms, move your legs, everything can move in a certain way. So if you just do it repetitively, add some weight, you're going to start getting fitter. The only difference is there are scientific principles at play. Anaerobic building, aerobic base building, you know, what, you know, systems are in place, what are you burning, that sort of thing. But that's for like performance training as well. But at first, I mean, very, very simply, the core of my program to this day is compound lifts, deadlift, bench press, power clean, overhead press, back squat, front squat, that sort of thing, just with a barbell. Because they recruit so many muscle groups, you really don't need to do anything else to be fit.
They're pretty much full body movements, aren't they? Most of those.
Full body movements. And the really fun myth that surrounds lifting with a barbell is that people are going to get too bulky. That's the thing I hear all the time. I don't want to be bulky. And I'm like, do you know what it takes to get bulky, first of all, when you're lifting? The amount of food intake it takes. You need to be at a caloric surplus, and just being in balance with your calories is difficult enough. And being at a deficit for losing weight is like even harder. So getting to a point where you're consistently building muscle to a point where you get like, I don't know what people describe as being bulky, but I imagine like big traps and biceps and whatever else.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to get to that, like a lot to get to that.
That's a problem, isn't that's the marketing too, isn't it? Because people are looking at the end. They're looking at the end result all the time.
Yeah.
That's taken
Oftentimes
someone.
That end result doesn't really mean just diet and lifting. There's also a whole lot of drugging going on in the side. I'm going to say
stuff going in. Yeah.
That going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
well, that's a real problem with in Australia. I know for sure for late teens, early 20-year-old guys trying to get fit. Taking the easy option, and there is a lot of steroid abuse here in Australia. I'm sure it's in America as well and Canada.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's a short-sighted. I guess we're diverting a little bit, but it's a dangerous but short-sighted way of doing it, isn't it?
Yeah, I honestly think it's one of the most horrific things going on for youth today in general. I mean, the image that's imposed on these young people, not to mention they're trying to figure out, we're also asking them to figure out what they want to do for the rest of their lives and then base that on the next 4 years of school they're going to take. It's very unfair. But from a fitness perspective, they're looking up at namely, I mention Instagram all the time because that's like just where I believe fitness has taken roots in kind of an unhealthy way a lot of times.
Yeah.
And they're looking at these people who, the variables at play when you're exercising to look a certain way are you have a point of reference, often unhealthy.
Yes.
A picture or a person or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you start practicing fad dieting, which is, here's a way to burn belly fat, and you have all these promises thrown at you.
7-day abs.
Yeah. And then you have a workout routine that also says, let's burn, fat and let's create abs, when the science is very clear about burning fat. It's the more muscle you have, the more capacity you have to, burn the carbs and the energy system. You keep the weight off if you're creating more muscle and using more muscle. That's essentially all it is. And you can't spot train fat away. So if I have a fat belly, I can't just go and do crunches for 3 years and expect to have a six-pack. I'll have a stronger core, but it's not going to do anything in the way of belly fat if I'm not changing my diet or anything.
Yeah.
The only thing that's going to do that is, operating or forcing those major muscle groups with compound lifts to burn the energy systems that would otherwise create fat storage,
Yeah, and their lifts, their exercises too. That the benefit doesn't stop as soon as you finish the exercise. You keep burning as you go throughout the day with a lot of these stuff, don't you? Because you're recruiting so many muscles and you fired it all up. It just doesn't stop as soon as you finish the lift.
Yeah, I mean, when your muscles are essentially living systems in and of themselves. I mean, so if you're going to work if you're going to do something like a back squat where you're engaging your core, you're engaging your quads, your hams, your glutes, even your calves, like everything up your kinetic chain is totally engaged there. So when you put that much strain on your system, it goes into overdrive to repair, and the repairing itself burns energy, and then the actual repair job takes energy, and all of it takes an insane amount of energy just to manage.
Yeah.
So that's what the burn is.
Yeah.
During and after. And I think there's a lot of confusion behind sweat equity, which is just like, let's go in and do like 4 rounds of 50 burpees or whatever, get a major sweat fest going on. Like that's going to, create that sort of state that's going to be a constant fat burn, which it will. But I mean, if you're not spending time developing the muscle, that's going to, the more, it's like, the bigger the engine, the more fuel it's going to take, and fat essentially is otherwise unburned fuel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's stored. It's energy that's just been stored because it hasn't been used.
Yeah.
So if you're operating with these heavy lifts, and I mean lifting heavy when I say like deadlift and bench press and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because you're really taxing your muscles and telling them we need more of you, and the more muscle you have, the more energy you're going to burn. And long term, you're just going to stay thinner and leaner and stronger at the end of it.
It's amazing, even when I was doing CrossFit a while back and just got injured and then just got lazy and stopped doing it. But I've started, I'm just pretty much going to a anytime fitness style gym, but got the capacity to deadlift and do things there. And it's amazing when you do pack a bit of weight on the bar. You don't have to be doing lots of reps. You know, in deadlifts, you work up a bit of a sweat if it's for you, if it's a reasonable weight.
Yeah.
A lot of effort goes into that. A lot of energy goes into that.
Think about your central nervous system on a back squat. So your central nervous system is managing all the different muscle groups. So like if you need to twitch your little toe a little bit to the left just to create a little bit more balance, that has to happen within your central nervous system. And that's just one part of it.
Yeah.
So if you have a barbell on your back, just imagine how taxing that is on your entire system to balance all that weight, heavy weight.
Yeah.
5 times through on like a 5x5 setup, which is like a very common, I recommend it for strength building and body fat burning all the time. That is incredibly taxing. And the benefit of that is you're going to propagate all of these adaptations across all of those muscle groups that are just going to make you a stronger, healthier, faster, leaner athlete and human, you know?
Yeah. And that's sort of old school too, isn't it? You know, there's all this new stuff, but that's sort of what they were doing way back, you know, the 5x5.
Yeah. Lift heavy stuff often, and you're just going to be a stronger person. And that's kind of like the whole premise in my style of training. It has a whole bunch of names. You can call it CrossFit or functional fitness or, you know, to me, it's just having a lot of fun while working out. But I mean, the true training is when I'm under the barbell or working with the barbell. That's where like, it's not glorious. No. And there's only so many pictures you can take doing things with a barbell because the only thing I'm changing is the weight. Yeah. And it'll be lighter with higher reps when a race is coming up, and then it'll be heavier reps, or shorter reps, higher weight when it's, you know, when I'm bulking a little bit. Yeah. But for the most part, that's the name of the game. And then I'll just tack like a workout of the day on after that, just to get my system used to working at a high capacity through a race. Like I'll be running and then I'll have to lift things really quickly, skyrocket the heart rate, and just kind of tuning my body into getting used to that. But as far as like fat burn, I'm not really thinking about that. No. I mean, it does help. You do burn a lot of energy doing that. Yeah. But to be very, very consistent about it, you have to be lifting, and you have to be lifting, you know, heavy. You got to be doing that stuff.
Got to be doing it. So, look, just as we starting to get up there a little bit in time, but as we, you know, head out and someone's looking to do something, they can't afford a trainer, you know, maybe not a gym membership. What are sort of 3 or 4 things that you'd recommend to someone that, whether they're coming from where you were, you know, they're underweight or, you know, unwell, or someone like me is overweight, what things would you recommend they do just to get themselves up and moving?
Yeah, and I've talked about this a few times just in my day-to-day, and I think one of the first things you have to do as a person when you want to initiate change in your life is to start understanding what's happening in your mind to keep those poor habits intact. And I think the best way to do that is to have an open conversation with yourself through a journal. Right. So it could be at any point in time. And this is another thing that worked really well for me in rehab when I started creating a dialogue with myself. And I started talking to myself and saying, I didn't really like how I did this, and I can't believe I did that, but this was, you know, and you don't have to say, Dear Diary, I saw like somebody who I thought was really cool. It's got to be like, man, that really pissed me off. I can't believe that, you know, and then you can read it to yourself and you start understanding what your thought process looks like. Yeah. Because you'll spend all day looking at everybody else and everybody else's problems, and you'll tag them with whatever. But when you can finally do that to yourself and become your own expert, you'll start seeing things a lot more clearly. Yeah. And then that goes the same way with like a food journal. If you want to just kind of see who you really are, because you're always going to be working to do yourself favors in your mind. You're not going to want to be hard on yourself. So you're always going to sort of cut corners every now and then, but if you have it written down, you're going to be able to hold yourself accountable. Yeah. The second part would be having open discussions with people who are really close to you in your life. I gave my parents and my sister and a couple friends permission to speak into my life. And that meant basically that when they were candid and open about how they thought my life was going, that I just kind of took it for what it's worth. And I understood that they were saying it from a place of love and respect and kindness. And I had given them permission to do that. So therefore I had to take that information and process it accordingly.
That's the key, isn't it? That's the key, giving the permission. Yeah.
Give them the permission. Yeah. Nobody wants to hear the random person telling you how to live your life. Nobody wants that. But when you openly say, I'd like you to tell me, certain things that you're noticing. If you see that I've fallen off my workouts, my diet or my nutrition is poor.
Yeah.
I give you full permission to have that conversation with me, And then the last part of the equation is definitely consult an expert and figure out what your body is like. I mean, for me, lately it's been like, go check out my VO2 max or go check out my metabolic rate, resting metabolic rate. All those things are really important when you're trying to figure out what works for you. And I don't mean go and get a DNA test to see if you can eat gluten or not. I mean, like, talk to a doctor and be like, based on some of my results, have your physical, obviously, definitely have your physical.
Yeah.
And just be like, what are your thoughts on exercise? And what do you think are my risk factors? What should I be wary of? And be open about your injuries and your back injuries. Because when you come to somebody like me who's a trainer, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to say, well, we're going to need to adjust this so we can, correct your spine issue. All I can really do is manage where we're going to place strength and take fat. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to do, and keep you motivated along the way. But ultimately, you've got to be getting your medical advice from medical experts. I mean, you have to get their opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't trust the book to tell you what your body's going to be able to do or not. And, you don't want to put yourself in a position to be in a worse place than you were when you started. So
exactly.
Talk to an expert as well. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's great, mate. So where can people find you online if they want to tap into what you've got to offer and just check out who you are? Where can they find you?
Yeah. You can get me at stfufit.com online. On Instagram, it's at stfufit. Facebook, it's at stfujohn. And as we speak, I'm developing a 30-day coaching program where it's fully integrated coaching, but it's based on, the way your shape and form, really. You as a person, what are you going to be capable of achieving within 30 days? And it falls back into like that. Let's put a goal in place. And this will be like a realistic goal. Like, let's lose between, 2 and 5 pounds, or let's like increase our back squat by, 15 pounds, something like that.
Okay.
And I'll provide like a roadmap to do that.
Brilliant.
As safe as possible,
Yeah.
But really the whole point of the 30-day program is to, like I said before, open up the dialogue and really start that health conscious decision-making, and not fad related, whatever image you're trying to do. And it's just trying to create healthy dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah. They're not going to be a finished product in 30 days. You're not promising them to be,
No, I mean, if you really bite into fitness, you'll never be satisfied. I just told you I raced it was like a 14-mile race, and I was like bummed. And then I realized, I'm like, so don't be such an idiot. Look what you did.
Look what I've just done.
That's kind of like the good thing. Eventually you'll get to a point where you're always looking for the next thing. And that's what it should be about. And never think that you're just stuck. Like, never think that fitness is go to the gym 3 days a week, an hour every time, rotate through your back and your legs and whatever. Sure, some people can do that and they can do it religiously, and it's great how they can. But fitness is such an adventure. It's like, go rock climbing, go on a hiking trip, do a race, do a 5K, do things with your family, everything. Fitness is literally getting outside and moving your body the way it's supposed to move. Yeah. That's all it is. If more people knew that it's more about moving your body than it is about a diet, then way more of us would be healthy. But,
Well, I fell into the trap. I fell into the trap of getting on the bike at the gym and, watching the screen and just doing my time.
Isn't that funny how we put TV on these workout machines?
Like, ridiculous. But then lately I've got the mountain bike out, and I've actually been riding through our city. Yeah. Lucky we've got lovely parks and tracks. And I'm finding I'm spending more time doing that. I'm covering greater distances, but it feels easier because I'm out. Yep. People are smiling, people are happy. You're in a park, you see, the dog might chase you. You're actually doing something that's and it's been brilliant.
Yeah, there's a danger in gyms because the social setting of gyms is often very, very aesthetic. It's like, people will dress a certain way, and it's all like, here I am, I'm at the gym, look at me, like this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Real training is like, in and out. I mean, you have a plan, get it done, you're out.
Get it
You know
done,
what I mean?
get going, get on with your life.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. Some people see it as a social thing, which it can totally be as well. But if you really want fitness to be the priority, gyms can be a little bit dangerous because you're going to fall into that trap of comparing yourself to other people who are there because they want people to look. I mean, that's their thing. They enjoy it, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of mirror gazing.
We all like kind of getting a little bit of respect here and there. But, I mean, for somebody starting out, it can be super intimidating. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, look, mate, thank you so much for your time. And I think what you've done is just a real credit to you, and keep up that journey and keep improving. And I think it's fantastic. And a lot of people I've spoken to, when they make the change, whatever transformation it is, so many want to give back and help other people. And that's what you're doing as well. So congratulations for that as well. That's brilliant. And that's really something that's a worthwhile thing to do, I think, just helping people. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's, busting one fat at a time.
Well done, mate. Thank you so much.
Man. Thank you.
You've done well.